Hello and welcome to the next of our lecture recaps. This is a recap of our lecture on the work of internal audit. So we're looking here at what internal audit actually do. We know they carry out assignments and then report. So what do they carry them out on? Remember, we talked about value for money first of all. So that's the first thing that internal audit will want to look at. Are we getting value for money from whatever area it is that we're looking at? So they looked at the 3 E's, which was our economy. Are we getting things at the least cost but the best quality? Efficiency, which is the use of resources. And effectiveness, which is the results that we get from the actual actions that we're carrying out. So do we achieve the objectives that we sought to achieve? So there are some problems with value for money auditing. Measuring the effectiveness can be the key one because it's not always quantifiable. So we need to set key performance indicators and see if we are achieving those. Other things that internal audit may do relating to IT, for example, they may be asking, does the system provide value for money? So often the internal audit will look first of all to see if you're getting value for money from whatever area it is they're looking at. The best value is what they're looking for. Also, when it comes to contract awards, this is a key area because sometimes contract awards can be fraudulently given. So there need to be controls in place and procedures need to be carried out. An internal audit will seek to check whether those are done. When it comes to project auditing, remember we're thinking here maybe we're building a new factory, maybe we've got a new IT system, a new product, whatever project it happens to be, the internal auditors may well audit it afterwards. So they'll be asking, did we achieve the objectives of the project? Did we get value for money from it? And did we learn the lessons for future projects? So that's what project auditing is all about. Operational audits is the nuts and bolts of what internal audit do. They look at different areas of operations and then they'll report on those areas. For example, they'll take each business area and look to see if they've got effective controls. And they'll also try and improve the 3 E's. So for example, we could have procurement where internal audits seek to see if we get value for money. So are we getting value for money from the purchases that we're obtaining? So are we paying the correct people? Are we paying the correct amount? Are we receiving the correct goods? So these are all things that internal audit will be interested in looking at. When it comes to marketing, well, it's not so clear cut because we'll need to see, did we achieve the objectives of the marketing project? Did we follow the procedures to make sure that all expenses, for example, were signed off? Could there be any breach of regulations? Are the controls in place? Remember, marketing will be tied in with expenses which could be fraudulently claimed, so we need to check that that's not happening as an internal audit department. The treasury function of an organisation is all important when it comes to cash and liquidity. So they'll be checking the foreign exchange risk, for example, to see that it's managed appropriately. And the key aspect here is, are there controls over all of the procedures in the treasury function? Because that's a key area in the business. For our HR department, well, do we have the policies and procedures in place? Could there be any ghost employees set up? There'll need to be controls to ensure that that doesn't happen. Internal audit will check that they're there. Are all decisions made by the HR department documented and documented appropriately so that there's no chance of litigation? Is there a plan for any loss of key staff? And are there disciplinary procedures that are in keeping with the legislation? So those are all examples of operational audits, areas where internal audit could go in, look at that particular area and report upon it. So when they actually do produce this report, the principles of the reporting are that they'll need to think who is it for and make it appropriate to address the objectives of whatever it is they're looking at. They'll also need to make it understandable. They'll set out the purpose and the structure of the assignment, so that will need an appropriate format to say what the nature of that assignment was. It also needs to be concise so that non-executive directors, for example, on the audit committee will be able to read it quickly and understand it. It needs to quantify the outcomes because remember, we're another department in the business. They need to add value, so internal audit also need to try to add value to the business. They also need to try to avoid surprises, so they need to inform people of what's likely to be in the report and be fair to those people. So the process for any internal audit assignment will be a planning stage, then gathering the evidence through the actual audit testing, summarising the results and making their conclusions. Those conclusions then will form the basis of recommendations, and that will all go into a report which will be reviewed then by the audit committee. Remember the differences then between our internal and external audit. Internal audit is not a legal requirement. Management appoint them, potentially through the audit committee, but they still report to management. And they report on the controls and systems in the organisations, not just the financial statements. As opposed to external audit, which is a legal requirement for larger companies, they are appointed by the shareholders rather than management or non-executive directors. They report to the shareholders, they report solely on the financial statements, and their opinion is given as whether the financial statements are true and fair. So those are some of the differences between our internal and external audit. That then was our lecture and a recap of it on the work of internal audit.